Next, we're going to go to Rusty Polsgrove. Rusty is the environmental justice organizer at the organization Arise for Social Justice, which is based right here in Springfield, Massachusetts. So I will turn it over to Rusty.
Hi, I'm Rusty. I use they, them pronouns. I'm also a UMass undergraduate. I study in the BDIC program. I study makerspace management. Got to give a big shout out to the all campus makerspace, which is on campus at UMass. That was where I first really got involved in environmental justice. That's where I used to work on campus. And that's also the group that introduced me to Tatiana and got me the job that I have at Arise, which is pretty cool. I started at Arise in August. They had the last time they had an environmental justice organizer was like years ago. And so it was a vacant position that they had decided to fill. So Arise for Social Justice was founded 30 years ago by women on welfare. In the first decade, they really expanded their definition. First, they were a poor people's rights organization. Then they were organizing low-income people to fight oppression in all of its manifestations. Arise is located on School Street in Springfield, and since its founding 30 years ago, they really have expanded to include all facets of life for people in Springfield. My job specifically is to be the environmental justice organizer, and so I have a couple projects that I'm working on currently. The first one that's pretty topical, especially with Rachel Sayet bringing up pipelines. Eversource, formerly Columbia Gas, they are looking to put in another natural gas pipeline through Springfield and East Longmeadow. They're looking to put in a pipeline that is redundant and is like already covered by the pipelines that already exist. And they're putting the health and safety of all of the people of Springfield and in the areas they plan to build through. So I'm working with the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition, who I know Murray and Vern are somewhere in the audience. I want to say hey to them. So we're working on opposing that. Something that UMass could do that would really, really help us is that UMass is a huge client of Eversource. So if they were to take a stance against the construction that's, in process, pending, going to happen, that would be incredibly helpful. Right now, we're petitioning Bill Ackley to cease, progress on the pipeline. They haven't started building yet, but they're headed in that direction. The other projects that I work on, I work with the Mold Committee at Arise for Social Justice. Springfield has had a huge mold issue for the past several decades. Recently, the Roderick L. Ireland Courthouse, which is right downtown by the casino, they found black mold in it, and they found that it was all throughout the building. And so they've taken everybody out of the building, and nobody's allowed to go in it, and they're doing all of the court cases on Zoom. What's really interesting about this is this type of mold has been prevalent in most of the homes in Springfield for, the past decade or so. But, there hasn't been any legislation to stop it, any legislation to protect tenants, any legislation to force landlords to deal with it. And it's known to cause things like COPD, asthma, allergies. And so for a very long time, Springfield was the asthma capital of the country. And so what I'm doing now with the Mold Committee, we worked with a class at UMass to try and develop mold detection techniques. But currently we are working on writing a new city ordinance that would require, some sort of cap on mold, and it would require landlords to, fix and remediate any mold in housing because it's poisoning people. And then the other initiatives I work on are community choice energy. We are trying to get clean sourced energy to everybody in Springfield, and we're hoping to have it created and the infrastructure created locally by Black and Brown businesses in Springfield. And we are also pushing to get a racial health equity impact assessment. And what that is it would be a study that anybody who's developing anything in Springfield, any sort of new building, they would have to go through it and explain exactly how their development would impact marginalized and unheard people in Springfield. And it really is a device for us to try and end the segregation that's happening in Springfield. If you look at the demographic maps of Springfield and the way things are laid out, you'll find a lot of food deserts and areas that are populated by Black and brown people. You'll find a lot of just like holes in coverage for people who need necessities like healthcare and food. Yeah, so that's like really what I work on. I'm really blessed. I have 3 awesome UMass undergrad interns who are interning with me. And the big thing that UMass can do for us is help us spread the word. You know, we've got fundraisers coming up for our mold committee and a couple other things. And those are really what we're trying to focus on. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of money flowing into the nonprofit sector. And so now that COVID has kind of, you know, plateaued in a certain sense, there's less of that happening. And so we are really looking to, you know, continue the momentum that we had gotten financially. I'm going to open it up to questions. I know I have 2 more minutes left.
Actually, Rusty, I think that we are going to wait until the end for questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass the mic.
Okay.